Why don't you stand near the kitchen doors? That way the family photos stay clean. Courtney, the bride, didn't even glance in my direction when she said it. She was focused on adjusting her veil in the reflection of the glass wall inside the Seattle Botanical Garden Conservatory. Her tone was light, breezy, and utterly dismissive. My place at the head table, the one with my printed name card, was already taken by a man in a sharp navy suit I had never seen before. You're just not matching the black tie vibe tonight, Lauren, she added, finally turning to me with a smile that felt more like pity than kindness. Besides, the vendor table has an amazing view of the orchids. I stood there in my slate gray silk dress, the humid greenhouse air clinging to my skin. I didn't yell. I didn't shed a tear. I quietly walked to the gift table instead. My hands found the thick cream-colored envelope with my name on it. I slipped it into my clutch. Inside was a cashier's check $4.10,000. Then I turned around and walked straight out the front doors without saying a single word. Before I tell you what happened when the bank alert started popping up on his phone during the honeymoon, drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is right now. I want to see how far this story reaches. The drive home passed in a haze of streetlights and silence. I didn't put on any music. I needed the quiet space to process what had just happened. That envelope in my purse, the one holding the £10,000 cashier's check, felt like it weighed 50 pounds. It was meant to be a gift. A gesture. A bribe, really. A last-ditch attempt to buy my way into a family that had already auctioned off my seat to someone else. When I stepped into my apartment, I didn't take off my heels or collapse on the couch. I didn't call my best friend to rant. I went straight to my home office. I sat down, opened my laptop, and the screen lit up. My reflection staring back at me looked calm. Disturbingly calm. That I logged into the secure banking portal. No password manager needed. I had all the credentials memorized. I was the one who set them up. I navigated to the shared business accounts for Justin's tech startup. He liked to call it Visionary VR. I called it a financial sinkhole. The transaction log loaded. A cascade of red numbers. I scrolled past the $25,000 venue deposit, then the catering charges. And then I saw them. 2 first-class round-trip tickets to the Maldives. Purchased yesterday on the company card. My card. The one I had personally guaranteed. That I didn't feel anger. Anger burns. It spills over. What I felt was cold, clinical clarity. The mindset of a forensic accountant reviewing a fraudulent ledger. I opened the folder labeled Loan Guarantor. This was the core of his company. The server leases hosting his entire platform required a guarantor with a credit score over 800. That was me. Without those servers, his visionary app was nothing but stray lines of code floating in emptiness. I moved the cursor to the liability management section. My finger hovered above the trackpad. I thought about the folding chair by the kitchen doors. About the stranger sitting in my seat. About the 10 years I spent cleaning up his messes and covering his overdrafts. He started offering excuses and apologizing for acting superior. I chose the option that would instantly cancel the personal guarantee. A warning window appeared on the screen. This may lead to immediate service suspension and the freezing of all connected assets. Are you sure? I didn't blink. I hit yes. The page reloaded. Authorization removed. This wasn't rage. It wasn't some dramatic meltdown. It was me finally closing out a terrible investment I should have walked away from years ago. As I stared at those words. Authorization removed. Nothing nostalgic or sentimental washed over me. Instead, everything returned like entries on a ledger. A mental spreadsheet I'd been refusing to look at for 10 years rolled open. Listing the cost of my own denial. $145,000. Just the principal. And that didn't even include the interest or the emotional surcharge I paid every time I bailed him out. It began with something small. A security deposit for his first apartment when he was suddenly short on cash. Then it became the lease for that downtown office because no property owner was going to trust a 24-year-old CEO with zero revenue. After that came the desperate late-night calls, another $5,000, then $8,000, usually around 2 a.m. when he was spiraling over payroll again. I thought back to Thanksgiving dinner last year. We were sitting in a high-end steakhouse downtown. My dad, Gary, stood up and tapped his wine glass with a fork. He launched into a speech about Justin's visionary brilliance. About how proud he was that a Walker was finally destined to revolutionize the tech world. My mother, Deborah, dabbed at the corners of her eyes, glowing with pride for her golden child. Justin sat there basking in it, as if he deserved every syllable. The waiter lingered nearby. The silence dragged on. My father patted his pockets and cracked a joke about forgetting his wallet in the car. Justin didn't even lift his eyes from his phone. I quietly slipped my card onto the tray. No thank you. No acknowledgement. I wasn't a person, just the mechanism that made the bill disappear. For years I wondered why I kept doing it. Why I kept pouring good money into a bottomless pit. Why I co-signed loans for a brother who literally sold my seat at his wedding tonight. And in the cold glow of my computer screen, I finally told myself the truth. It wasn't kindness. It wasn't loyalty. It was my own professional flaw bleeding into my personal life, that we call it the sunk cost fallacy. This irrational trap where you keep investing in something doomed simply because you've already poured so much into it. You tell yourself that another $10,000 will make the original $100,000 worthwhile. That quitting means accepting that all that time, money, and effort vanished. That you were wrong. I had treated my family the same way you treat a failing stock. I kept buying more shares, hoping it would rebound, hoping one day they'd see me as their daughter and not their personal ATM. I convinced myself that if I just covered one more bill, patched one more disaster, the emotional return would finally appear in the form of love. But staring at those bleeding red numbers on my screen, I saw the truth. I wasn't some selfless martyr. I was a gambler refusing to leave the table. And tonight I was finally walking away. I wasn't losing a brother. I was cutting my losses. For the first time, the ledger of my life was about to settle. 3 days. That's how long it took for the consequences of my disappearance to reach the other side of the planet. 72 hours of a silent phone. Quiet enough to be peaceful, empty enough to be frightening. I worked. I watered my plants. I sipped coffee on the balcony. Then at 6 in the morning on a Tuesday my screen lit up. Not a text. A fraud alert. Transaction declined. 5 Seasons Resort, Maldives. Amount: $12,000. I stared at the notification while taking another sip. $12,000. More than the cashier's check I had reclaimed. An upgrade fee. They were trying to upgrade to the overwater villa. Fully expecting that my card, my credit, would catch them like always. Then the messages started. Justin first. Hey, card is acting weird. Declined at the front desk. Call the bank ASAP. 10 minutes later. Lauren answer. This is embarrassing. Fix it. 20 minutes after that the shift came. Stop messing around. I know you saw the alerts. Unfreeze the accounts. We're stuck here. Then Courtney. A giant paragraph. No punctuation, packed with poison. You're ruining my honeymoon because you're jealous, petty, bitter, and can't stand your brother being happy. Fix this or we're done. Finally, a voicemail from my father. Gary. I put it on speaker, setting the phone on the granite counter like it was something contaminated. Lauren, it's your father. Justin called from the resort. He's stranded. Says the accounts are locked. I don't know what childish stunt you think you're pulling, but you need to grow up. You're embarrassing this family. Fix it. I listened to it twice. Childish. Embarrassing. That old familiar ache pulsed in my chest. A dense, heavy pressure I'd carried since childhood. But now, for the first time, I could finally name it. There's a term I once read. The glass child syndrome. It usually describes the experience of the healthy sibling in a family where one child is chronically ill or disabled. The parents become so absorbed in caring for the child with greater needs that they barely register the other one. The healthy sibling turns invisible. They're expected to be flawless, low maintenance, and entirely self-supporting because the parents have nothing left to offer. But in my family, Justin wasn't sick. He wasn't disabled. He was just a narcissist. And I wasn't merely healthy. I was functional. That's when it hit me. I hadn't been unseen because they lacked love for me. I was unseen because I was useful. I was the window they stared through while admiring their golden boy. I was the clear, sturdy pane shielding them from the weather so their view stayed pleasant. No one notices a window until it breaks. No one thanks a window for being see-through. They only yell at it when it starts to splinter. To them, I wasn't a daughter or a sister. I was part of the structure. And you don't negotiate with structure. You just assume it will keep the house standing. My phone buzzed again. Another call from an international number. I felt no pull to pick up. No urge to justify anything or apologize for being petty. What I felt was the icy solid satisfaction of finally refusing to be transparent. If they wanted to look at me now, they'd have to face the fractures. The threats began rolling in about an hour later. Justin had stopped pleading. He switched to the only tactic he understood: intimidation. If you don't unlock the accounts in 10 minutes, you're dead to us. Mom and Dad are cutting you out of the will. You'll never see your nieces or nephews. If we even have them, you're severing yourself from this family forever. I read the message without emotion. He was trying to fire me from a position I had already resigned from. I grabbed my phone and called my attorney, Sarah. I had hired her 3 years earlier when I created the private loan contract for Justin's bridge loan. Back then, Justin had actually laughed at the 50-page contract, signing it without a second glance because he was far too occupied revolutionizing the industry. "It's Lauren," I said when she picked up. "I'm invoking the call-on-demand clause." Silence stretched on the other end. Sarah knew precisely what that meant. Clause 9, Section 4. The part stating that the lender, me, could demand full and immediate repayment, including all accumulated interest, if the borrower mishandled finances or damaged the lender's reputation. "You're certain?" Sarah asked quietly. "This is the do not turn back option. Once we initiate it, the bank locks down every account linked to his EIN to secure the collateral. This isn't a warning. It's a shutdown." He spent $12,000 upgrading a hotel room while he was already insolvent, I replied, my voice calm. "And he just threatened me in writing. Activate it." "Done. The filings go out in 10 minutes. I ended the call and rotated back to my laptop. I didn't want to miss the unfolding show. 82:15 p.m. The first domino tipped. A notification arrived from the bank. Commercial accounts frozen. Visionary VR. 82:20 p.m. The server host automatically emailed the admin contact. Me, payment failure. Services disabled. I pulled up Justin's company website. It wouldn't load. The About page. Also dead. Just a blank 404 screen. Within minutes, his email and Slack servers dropped offline. His entire tech empire, built on the foundation of my labor, collapsed the instant I withdrew support. As each shutdown confirmation appeared, my phone rang. A Seattle area code. "This is Lauren," I answered. "Marcus Thorne. We met at the wedding." The man who'd been sitting in my seat at the head table. He explained that Visionary VR's accounts were frozen right in the middle of his Series A review. Then he delivered the blow that landed hardest. Justin had told him the head table chair was available because I was just support staff, someone insignificant. He'd pushed me to the back to impress an investor. That was the moment the last shred of guilt inside me vanished. The following morning, my family showed up at my door. Frantic, messy, and broke. I opened the door but kept the chain fastened. Justin pleaded for me to reverse the bank action. Courtney shrieked. My father barked at me to stop being childish. "I'm behaving like a lender," I said, sliding an itemized repayment list through the narrow gap. $145,000. The cost of my stolen seat at the head table. Murmured that he didn't have the money. I told him he didn't lose the investor because of me. He lost him because of the way he treated me. "I resign," I said, and shut the door. The silence that followed felt like breathing fresh air. For the first time that I blocked their numbers, watched the sun rise over Seattle, and opened the folder of loan documents on my laptop. 10 years of rescues, secrets, and sacrifices. Then I erased it all. That I call it the peacekeeper's paradox. Believing you're maintaining harmony when in reality you're fighting a private battle so no one else has to. Letting the roof crumble was the first moment I finally felt freed. If you've ever been the unseen peacekeeper in your family, share your story below. I'll read every one.